Greetings, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Pilot Review Show. I am Captain Blade J52, joined this week by my merry cohort, who's apparently left his, holographic settings on random, Artie.
Lark. Woof, woof.
Yeah, been having a little fun on the holodeck, accidentally left the randomized settings on, that kind of stuff. So he's our resident Targ of the evening.
Ugh. Oh, that was just terrible. No, yeah, let's get out of that. Ugh.
But, not really too awful much going on this week, but we do have some stuff in the patch notes and everything I want to go over for you guys, especially once we get to that point. But let's go ahead and dive into what we actually do have. First and foremost, we have our Snow Gear Fashion Contest. And, basically, this is a little contest that started on the 20th and will be running to the 3rd at the time of recording this. So you've got a few days still to get this in. And basically, is it? Yeah. Say, actually about, I think, 8 days at the time of recording, roughly, something. So, you got a little bit of time still to get this in. Basically, in a nutshell, you take a screenshot of your character and their boss on the brand new Prior's World Select screen, and you send it in to Cryptic Studios with the subject line Winter Gear Contest, and you're putting your favorite gear together and basically trying to make it look as cool as possible. The grand prize winner will receive a retail copy of the game signed by the devs, a MSD poster of the Defiant signed by the devs, exclusive Stow badge from STLV, and a Stow pin. 2 runner-ups will receive a retail copy of the game signed by the devs and a MSD poster of the Defiant signed by the devs. So basically, that's some of the prizes you can get. They do have a few rules, such as don't modify the images, such as cropping in any way. Just send it to them as it is, and hopefully you're one of our lucky viewers out there that'll be able to win this some fabulous prizes from the devs. Yeah, any thoughts on this, good sir? Any good screenshots you might have seen?
I've seen a few, sadly I can't show them because I'm not the one recording, as well as I don't have them up, but that's besides the point. But I've seen a few that have been sent to me, if they're pretty decent. Quite well done. I've seen some like the similar that we see with the Klingon wearing the Vodwar jacket. I've seen a few do the Prior Worlds episode and get that winter gear and modify it to have all the cool whatnot and with all their other gear. And some of them are really nice. Some of them look like very crisp. Something that would definitely keep you warm. And I've seen some people cosplay as. I've seen one that was basically all these Star Wars characters on the Hoth base. So you had Han Solo in the blue parka with the hood and all that. You had another Boff that was all dressed in white like Leia was, wearing the Noel Ennis vest, just colored white. You had some other guy that was in a similar outfit, supposed to be Luke, wielding a sword, but it was, well, they don't have the sword, they just told me they were wielding a whatever. But I've seen stuff like that, and some people are really trying to get as much detail. Some people have actually run into a little bit of an issue where their character just generates to whatever their primary tailor option is, like their first image, their first tailor costume, I guess you could say, that first slot, instead of whatever they're actually wearing at the time. And not sure what behind that, but I've been told they've sent in that bug before, so I don't know, but I've seen quite a few good ones about that. Yeah. How about you?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I see a couple floating around the forum a little bit. Some of them pretty decent, some of them are kind of generic, for lack of a better word, coming to mind. Not necessarily bad, it's just basic gear and everything. Not really much to make it stand out. And then I've seen some really great ones too. It just kind of depends on luck of the draw, I guess. But definitely check that contest out if you're somebody that appreciates doing a lot of you know, your Space Barbie type stuff, you love messing with the costumes, all that stuff in STO. Because after all, they do say that Space Barbie is the true end game.
It's the most expensive end game.
Yes, yes it is. And maybe you'll be one of the lucky few that will actually get one of the very big prizes out there. Hopefully you're one of our listeners. But moving right along, our very own Rekha Sharma has visited the STO studio, and I probably butchered her name. I apologize in advance. But I suck with names, so I'll just go ahead and say that. But she is the actress behind Commander Landry in our new Discovery stuff. So, yeah, good sir. Admittedly, you've seen far more Discovery than I have and everything, but how cool is this that we're actually getting some of those folks actually into the game at this point?
It's actually quite impressive, to be completely honest, because, yeah, we've got very, you got voices from all the other other Star Trek series. You got, Tim Russ, you've gotten people from Deep Space Nine, and, you had literally almost everyone from Deep Space Nine. So, get those voices, yeah, that's one thing. But now to get literally these new people that just now been recently added into this giant cadre of characters to easily just come in without having too much of an issue, that's supremely impressive. Just that ability to grab someone that goes, "You've been on the new show. We would like you to be your character, but not on set. Would you be able to do that?" And, there's been some people out there that are like, "No, I can't do this. I don't have the time to really focus on the game. I got to worry about the script." No, these people just came right in and just took care of it, and that was it. They from, as you see in the almost 5-minute behind-the-scenes bit with Rekha, I'm going to butcher the name now, Rekha Sharma, talked a little bit about, how she was approached when she came in to do the voice acting. Got to look over a lot of the developers' shoulders when they were building the characters, when they were designing the missions, where she got to see where her lines were going to be said. And there was a few points where, she would look at a line and go, "No, it needs to be said like this more, right?" And she would go and, voice act that line and then come back and see how it worked. And it'll take multiple takes, but you actually get a little bit more of that in-depth of her viewpoint on how this most recent expansion was, how it affected her, and how she feels like she's affected the game positively. So I really like how we basically got a new voice. I mean, I'm glad we didn't get some of the other voices in there, or other behind the scenes stuff. But some people were busy. It happens for a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. But no, this was very exciting to say the least.
And understandable, they've got stuff they've got to do too, various schedules they've got to keep, especially for the show, maybe personal stuff going on. But I have to agree, it was actually kind of cool to see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of some of the different actors, actresses coming in, and I'm actually surprised at how easy it has been to get some of them in there, because you'd think, currently being produced show, they're not really going to have a lot of time, but we've actually got quite a bit of stuff from some of that particular crew. And, that's always cool, being able to, like they said, develop the game alongside an actively going show. So it gives quite a bit of stuff to stow. And some new stuff to blow up in game, too, just saying,
yeah. But if I could speculate...
Okay.
I'm sure you, as myself, as well as many of our viewers, have already seen the little sneak peek for Star Trek Picard, right?
I have,
so,
yeah. I don't know about everybody of our viewers,
if you haven't,
but yeah.
go on YouTube. It's about maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes long. It's a nice little snippet, but think of it this, alright? So they're doing this with Discovery. Now, imagine if they got various other actors and actresses, but not from that as well, since that's more close to STO as we'll ever get, and intertie both of those series, much more solidified that tie right there than just having them because there's also that bit that the producers were talking to the developers about the path to 2409. So now having their characters show up in STO, I feel like also solidifies that much more than just having characters from Discovery or even the most recent Deep Space Nine guys, and all that. I mean, that's great and all, but now you have someone that's might as well have been at the same time as STO at that point. Have those characters join in, and that's going to be exciting. Because then you'd be like, this person's definitely still alive because they're still in the show at the time. You can see them in the show and then go, oh yeah, and this is them literally 5 minutes later in game.
Just saying, Odyssey on screen. I mean, what?
Oh, I'm not even going that far. Odyssey won't even. Odyssey's a little ways ahead of that, but that's a different topic, different article, different subject. We'll talk about that next time. We have other things to really speculate about.
Yeah. So some bits of Stowe might become canon. I mean, what? Not that I'm secretly hoping, rooting, praying for that sort of thing, because of reasons. But yeah, definitely check this out, guys. You'll enjoy that. There's some fun behind-the-scenes stuff we get to see in the little video here. And maybe we'll get some more stuff, like you said, from the Picard series when that's coming up. Maybe we'll finally even see Patrick Stewart himself decide to sit down in a chair. At least that would be really cool if he did. But
that would be a hallmark right there, just spot on.
Mm-hmm. But moving along, we have our patch notes for the 23rd. Now this was just a couple of days ago, and we do have a few things in here that we did want to go over. There's a pretty hefty amount of stuff that you can see here in the general, the content, the UI, and the systems. But I know some of my stuff will take a bit longer to explain, so what's some of the stuff you see that stand out to you, good sir?
There's actually a few things in the systems section, so let's see if we can find it. Here you go. The consoles from the Discovery Legends reputation can no longer be salvaged. I saw that when they first came out. It's understandable how now they cannot be salvaged because other consoles from the other reputations also cannot be salvaged. Same thing with the weapon. So it's good that fix that bit. There's also, let's see, they've reduced the price of the Aaron Jupiter outfit pack from 200 to 150, and that's from the Lobby store if I remember correctly. So, so they're fixing some prices on certain things. I'm pretty sure it's due to that. When that first came out, that was quite a few expansions back, so they're more or less lowering the prices, so when they add new things, that would be the high price thing. Just for the hell of it, I do like how they just mentioned the faulty Section 31 holodisguises. I mean, it's not much of a big hoopla on the thing, it's just saying that this was added, but I'm actually happy that it's a thing now. Because now you don't really have to use the Obi holodisguises. Like, those work for specific things, but they feel so outdated. You don't get to see any of the holodisguises of the more recent hostiles and stuff like that, the most recent NPCs. Kind of an interesting thing to see. Like, I was just a Targ a little bit ago. You don't have that holodisguise normally in the Lobby store, do you? Nah. So, that's just a few of the snippets I saw. Yeah.
Alrighty. Now, a couple of the ones, and this gets into the bugs corner. There's some of the things that we've talked about before, like issues with hanger pets. Some of those have actually been updated and fixed as of this patch. Now, there's a lot more patch notes we can go over, but I wanted to pick out the certain key ones in here. Because otherwise, if we read off each individual thing, we'd be here for at least another 30 to 45 minutes, bare minimum. And I doubt y'all want to hear me yakking that long. But, at least over just repeating patch notes. But some of the hanger pet updates they've done is they've improved the AI. The hanger pets in attack state should more reliably know when to follow the owner based on the relevant distance. They've improved their full impulse behavior, and overall have made some improvements that should make the pets a little less stupid, to put it bluntly, because let's be real here. We've all seen hanger pets do some pretty stupid stuff. But
so you're telling me that my wings upon wings of peregrine fighters are not going to just immediately fly out of the hangar bay and straight into a warp core breach just to get blown up in 2 seconds? I'm so happy about this now.
Well, I don't know necessarily about that, but as far as actually being able to follow people, being able to respond to the commands better, such as the follow command or the attack command, you're able to engage at larger distances. And one of the big things, remove the limitation of needing targets to be within 15 kilometers in order to allow hanger pets to launch. So they've actually done quite a bit of improvements. And they can momentarily improve their speed now if they're told to attack a very distant target. So overall, quite a bit better. Now, one of the other things that I did want to go over for you guys is issues with claiming some of the gear on the Tier 6 ships. As you guys know, the implemented change, or the change for the Tier 6s, was made very recently. That now means you can claim a Tier 6 starship at any level as long as you're out of the tutorial, as long as you've chosen a faction on Romulans or Dominion. But one of the big things that people were noticing is on a few certain ships is that they would go to claim the ship, they would open it up, oh, it's supposed to come with this piece of gear, but it's not here. That has been, for the most part, taken care of. There's quite a few ships that they name off here. Like one example, or the example they give in the patch notes. The wide-angle quantum torpedo wasn't coming with certain ships, such as the assault cruiser refit, T5 and T5U, and then you had the Intel assault cruiser and the command assault cruiser. So the Archon and the Vizier were not giving the wide-angle quantum like they should have been. Now, there was actually a few other ships in my testing that I had noticed had that same bug, such as the Alita was one of them. It wasn't giving the console that it should have been. So that's another ship. I did report that to them. And hopefully that one's been fixed. If it hasn't, then definitely let me know. I'll be sure to forward that on to them. But if you guys are seeing any other ships that aren't awarding the gear that they should be, do let me know. I went through, whenever I knew this was happening, I went through the entirety of the C-Store, the entirety of the Lockbox, Low Buy, and Promo ships, and every ship I had access to in-game I went through and tested. Now, I'm not going to swear to it that I got them all. I could have missed one, so if we did, then let us know. I'll be sure to forward that on to them. But that's some of the really big things that we have here. I'm going to encourage you guys to go through, read through some of this stuff. There is quite a bit of it here, some of it fairly significant. But that's what we've got for our articles this evening. Now, we do have a budget build for you guys this week. And we were going to try to do this one on a previous show, but that show, I don't believe, ever made it to air. I think this was the one that did not make it to air. Yep. The Fleet Baran. So, for folks that you've been keeping up with some of the releases and whatnot, they actually released the Baran to us. Now, I know myself and Timber, we actually tested this particular ship on Tribble. We took it out for a couple of spins on Holodeck, and it's actually not a bad ship. But, as always, for people that maybe you're kind of curious about, okay, what can I really do with this ship? what's a good way to kit it out? That's what we've got for you. Now, we went with a bare bones budget here for this, and we wanted to slap something together to take advantage of what all the ship can actually do. So it's a fairly tanky build in this case, but it'll also have a good bit of knockdown power. So we based it in Polaron because you can get a lot of good Polaron stuff on the cheap. Up front we have our advanced piezo beam. This is going to give us a bit of healing whenever we get the weapon proc. And we also have our morphogenic Polaron energy torpedo, which is basically a torpedo that does Polaron damage instead of the standard kinetic, though benefits from projectile and energy buffs both. Then we have our advanced temporal defense Polaron beam and our chronometric Polaron beam. So these are going to give some very nice benefits to you. In the rear of the ship, we have the Thoron infused Tetrion beam. That's going to give a bit of radiation damage. Then we have two of our Dominion Polaron beams from Boldly They Rode, so you get to hear Curland here a few times. But you're actually getting a hybrid beam that's going to give you the Tetrion and Polaron procs both. So you could proc a bit of shield drain or a pretty hefty amount of power drain. Then finally we have our morphogenic energy weapon, which is our Omni Turret. I call it an Omni Turret because it can function either as a turret or as an Omni Beam, depending on what type of firing mode you activate. Then for our shields, our engines, our deflector, and our warp core, we had to source a warp core out for our set today because this is the Jem'Hadar set. Now our Jem'Hadar set is one that comes from Operation Gamma and Boldly They Rode. It's a 3-piece set. It'll give you quite a bit of drain to it. The 2-piece is also going to give you a very nice buff to your Polaron damage. Then, since it's an older set, it doesn't come with a warp core, and as usual, we're running our temporal face overcharged core, because this is a very, very hard core to top, in our opinion, at the budget level. And basically, what's so special about this warp core is it's going to basically cut your bridge officer cooldowns in half for the duration it's active. So it's essentially a temporal negotiator style effect. Then for your devices, there's 4 slots you can get on the Baran, and we usually like to think of devices as personal preference. However, there are a couple of devices we do usually like to recommend to people, just so they'll know of some options that's out there. We have the subspace field modulator. This is going to give a bit of defense rating as well as a fairly hefty chunk of damage resistance while it's active, at least 1 neutronium alloy armor worth of resistance, and the only downside to it is it does debuff you for a minus 400 protonic damage resistance rating. Now, not a lot of enemies use protonic damage within the game, but it is worth being aware of as it can be a double-edged sword depending on when and where you use it. Some other examples of good devices you might enjoy are the Gemini hardpoints, the ablative devices. There's
Deuterium surplus.
The deuterium surplus, energy amplifier batteries. It really depends on the situation and what you're going to have access to, and what you may wish to use. Now, for the fleet version of the Baran, it comes with a 5th engineering slot. I know some people were hoping for tactical, but that's not the case here. Now, as far as our consoles go, we'll start with tactical because that's the easiest to deal with. And we have 2 of our directed energy distribution manifolds. These are the plus beam consoles. And these particular consoles, we had to go with these because there's not yet a source of budget Polaron tactical consoles that exist within the game. So we had to roll with this. Then we have our Then we have the morphogenic matrix controller, and that console is going to round out our morphogenic 3-piece, and we've actually got a fairly significant set bonus. I'll explain why we wanted to run that in just a moment. Then for our science consoles, we have the Temporal Disentanglement Suite. This is a very nice console. It's going to give a nice chunk of shield capacity as well as a little bit of shield damage resistance. But more importantly, it's going to give a nice boost to your critical chance and severity based on your aux power. So that's going to be a fairly significant console for you. We have our Ordnance Accelerator from the Gamma reputation. This is going to give a nice little chunk of boosting to our Polarons, as well as, I believe this one buffs our photon, or not photon, but our projectile damage a little bit as well. Then the next thing we have up is our Piezoelectric Focuser. Now this is also going to give a fairly significant boost to your turn rate, to your shield rating, as well as your Polaron damage, and also, of course, Plasma as the alternate energy type. And that's going to round out our 2-piece bonus with our Piezo Beam. So you're actually getting some fairly good bonuses there. As far as our engineering consoles go, we have our assimilated module, which is going to give a little bit of crit chance and severity, as well as a tiny bit of control expertise. Then we have our Trillium Deplating. This is going to give a nice chunk of damage resistance, as well as shield capacity. So it's basically a neutronium alloy and a field generator slammed into one thing. The next thing we have is our Martok defense configuration. This is going to give some nice stat boosts, as well as a bit of turn rate as to why we wanted to use this. It's also going to buff our shields a little as well. The next big thing we have is our Sustained Radiant Field, and one of our more potent consoles on the build. Now it doesn't give you much in terms of the damage boosting benefit that it gives you, but the heals that it gives you are Category 2 heals. So when it says it gives a 20% or a 10% boost, it actually means a straight 20% or a 10% boost. So if, say, you're doing a heal, and this is just to keep the numbers simple, you're doing a heal for 1,000 points, this says, okay, it's going to boost by an additional 20%. Here, have another 200 points on top of that. So very, very potent console to have on this end. And then we have the Barand console, which is a nice little thing to have. It generates an ion storm, which can be used as a nice little kick in the pants to foes. Then for our hangar bay, I left this particular thing blank because we don't like assuming what access people have to different hangar pets, or even what people are going to like to use. So that's pretty much your choice of pet. Now, going into game here, we'll take a quick look at the set bonuses, because I actually have them handy. For your Piezo 2-piece, you're going to get a straight Polaron and projectile damage boost, as well as drain expertise, and oh my god, it's an 8472. He's hitting them random settings again on us, folks.
Sorry about that.
But, oh, it's funny. But, that's what you're going to get for your 2-piece there. Now, for your morphogenic 2-piece, or 2-piece and 3-piece, rather, I should say. For your 2-piece, you're basically, if I could words tonight, getting a 15% recharge time reduction to all of your major tactical powers here, like your Fire at Will, your Overload, your Scatter Volley, your Torp Spread, and your Mine Patterns. So basically any of your different firing modes, it's going to get a straight cooldown reduction, which will stack with any other sources of cooldown reduction you may have present on the build. The next thing you have is the 3-piece, and this is where it starts to get really nasty. Each time you activate one of the following powers that they list, you get a certain buff based on that power that can stack up to 3 times and lasts 45 seconds. Oh my lord, it's morn. So if you activate your Thaw or your Overload, you get a 2% critical chance that can stack up to 6%. If you activate Scatter Volley or Rapid Fire, you get 10% crit severity, which can stack up to 30%. And then if you activate your Torpedo Patterns or your Mine Patterns, you get a 7.5% weapon damage for a maximum of 22.5%, which is roughly the equivalent of a free tactical console, and overall quite a bit of stats you're getting from the morphogenic set. But that's what we have for our various bits of gear. For our skill tree, it's pretty much our standard skill tree setup that we have here on the show. I'm not going to go into great details as to why we picked each of the points that we did. We have a little mini episode for you guys that will be releasing fairly shortly that explains a bit more behind the scenes as to why we picked the different points that we did. But we have a 14 engineering, 14 science, and 18 tactical point breakdown. And for those that just want to copy something and go, here it is. There's our lieutenant level stuff, lieutenant commander, our commander skills, captain, and of course our admiral skills. And our bonuses that I mentioned from the morphogenic will stack with our tactical readiness that we have here. So you're essentially getting a 32% reduction to your tactical powers, which is going to push them pretty close to global, if not outright getting them there. For our specializations, we went with Intel primary, strategist secondary. This is going to give a nice bit of knockdown power to the ship, as well as some nice defensive bonuses. Coming into our traits, if everything will load here. I think that one was supposed to, that one was supposed to be the Baran trait. Now for our personal space traits, we have our beam training for free beam damage, beam barrage, which is our R&D crafting trait. We always like to assume you've leveled at least one of the crafting schools with your character, and in this case we assume you've leveled beams. Then we have elusive for free defensive value to the ship. That's going to make you harder to hit. Grace Under Fire for the career-specific trait. This is the career-specific version for engineers. If you're not an engineer but you'd still like to use the build, swap out Grace Under Fire for your own career-specific trait and you should be good to go. Next we have Fleet Coordinator for free damage based on how many people are in the party. 2% minimum counting yourself, up to a 10% maximum counting a full team of 5. Then we have Nanite Repair Matrix, which is going to give a nice little heal anytime you drop below 50%. Then we have our Redirected Armor Plating. Whenever you get shot from behind or the sides, you get a little bit of damage resistance. Point Blank Shot from the House Peg mission, which is going to give you a nice Category 2 damage bonus. The closer you are to the target, up to a certain maximum benefit. And then finally we have our Projectile Training, to give a little bit more of a boost to our Polaron Energy Torp. Now because it's still a torpedo, it does benefit from projectile boosting in this instance. So it benefits from energy damage boosting and projectile boosting. So it's one of the few items that actually gets to double dip. Next thing we have is our Best Defense trait. This grants a whole healing effect along with the normal effects of our attack patterns. Then we have our Honored Dead Starship trait, which is going to give a nice chunk of damage reduction to us, as well as a bit of healing. And that's going to be worth at least 10% across the board damage reduction to you, as far as resistances goes. We have Unconventional Tactics. Brace for Impact increases your damage for a short period of time, in addition to its normal effects. So that's going to be a very nice little boost. And then we had the Baran trait to round it all out. That's what's supposed to be in this blank spot here. At the time of putting it together, they didn't actually have the trait in the builder yet. For our space reputation, we have pretty much our standard setup. The advanced target systems for the free severity, precision for the free critical hit chance, magnified firepower for a free category 2 damage buff, and then to round it out and give a bit of healing to the build, we have the Energy Refrequencer, which is going to heal us for a certain amount of the damage we deal to foes. For active reps, we have Anti-Time Entanglement Singularity, which is going to be a nice little AoE kick in the pants and slow to foes. Then we have our Biomolecular Shield Generator. Whenever you're inside this, you're going to take reduced damage to your shields, as well as getting a bit of healing to it. Deploy Sensor Interference Platform, which is a nice little oh crap I'm going to die type of thing. This will poof up a little tiny sensor platform that will taunt foes to itself until either it's destroyed or the duration runs out, whichever of those two things happens first. Then finally, we have our quantum singularity manipulation. This is going to increase all of your science stats by a fairly significant amount for a brief time, as well as granting a temporary cloaking effect. To get a bit more bang for your buck out of certain powers, throw any exotic buffs you may have first, hit your quantum singularity manipulation, and then drop your anti-time on top of them. You get a lot more damage that way, and a lot more threat generation that way for our tanks out there. As far as the bridge officer setup for the ship itself, you have a Lieutenant Universal, Lieutenant Tactical / Command, Lieutenant Tactical, Commander Engineering / Command, and a Lieutenant Commander Science. Now for our Commander Engineering seat, or Commander Engineering / Command, we have our Engineering Team, which is going to heal our hull a bit and purge viral matrix effects. We have our Emergency Power to Engines 2. This is a nice little get the heck out of Dodge type of thing. Then we also have our Emergency Power to Weapons 3. This is going to give some extra weapons power and a damage boost for a brief duration. Excuse me. And then we have our Reverse Shield Polarity 3, which is going to recharge our shields based off of incoming damage in a pinch whenever we need it. Next we have our Lieutenant Commander Science, which is our science team to recharge our shields a bit and purge certain subnucleonic effects. Then we have Hazard Emitters, which is a heal over time and purges Borg plasma fires, as well as a slight damage reduction while it's active. Then we have our Gravity Well, which is going to group up foes and be a nice little control effect. That's going to allow us to control the battlefield a little bit better. Then for our tactical seating, we have in our Lieutenant Tactical / Command, we have our Concentrate Firepower, which is going to let us cheese a little bit extra out of our torps, as well as activating our Brand trait. Then we have our Scatter Volley to help get the critical severity out of our morphogenic set, and can also benefit our morphogenic energy weapon. Then for our Lieutenant Tactical, we have our Tactical Team, which is going to purge boarding parties and redirect our shield facings automatically. We have our Attack Pattern Delta, since we're assuming a tank setup for this particular build. Then, if you wanted to, you could swap it to an Attack Pattern Beta if you wanted something more damage-focused and still take quite good advantage of the build. Then, finally, for our Lieutenant Universal, we made this into another tactical seat, and we made it into a Torpedo Spread 1, which is going to let us smack quite a few things with our torps, and then a Beam Fire at Will 2 to reach out and smack things with a beam. As far as our overall setup, you're looking at about 1.2 million EC in order to get your Honored Dead, and then about 52,000 DIL at the time of creating this. So you're looking at about a week to build the ship, and that's purely due to dilithium refining limits, and that's assuming one toon is refining dilithium per day. So it's pretty much what we've got for a budget build this evening. Something fairly straightforward and basic for folks that want to use the Baran. But thoughts from you, good sir?
I do have a few questions. For instance, I know that we're using the entirety of the Jem'Hadar set since, you know, Polar and whatnot, but how good is its speed and turn rate? You've tested it, right?
Are we talking for the ship itself?
For the ship itself.
It turns kind of like a heavy cruiser, if that makes sense. So it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. So that's kind of why in some of these instances we went with consoles that did have a bit of turn rate, like the Martok console, to kind of make up for that.
That makes sense. I was the reason I was asking is because in the device slots, the deuterium surplus that you can get at the name, it's down there by Forcus and all that, the bottom left end of the beta quadrant. But that actually helps quite a bit with a little bit of added defense, but it helps out with flight speed and a lot of turn rate. So if you really wanted to, you could probably replace that Martok console with something else and just continue running with the Deuterium surplus if you really needed that turn real fast. But that's just my only real thing thinking about that. But besides that, I think the ship runs beautifully even without the Deuterium surplus. I mean, you can put the build batteries or even the reactive armor catalyst as your other devices just for free use, and boom, it's still a wonderful ship no matter what. So.
And that's some fairly sound advice indeed. It's I say it just really depends on what you want to go for,
right.
Honestly. And that will work. That'll definitely work if you need a little extra bit of turn. You could even combine the two if you wanted even more turn, because, well, more turn for your turn and turn. I know bad joke is bad, but yeah, that's, like I say, that's kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to incorporate a little bit of turn to make up for the fact it's not got the greatest turn rate ever, which you're already going to get that a little bit out of the Lucari console, because it does have some benefits to that. But, yeah. Anyways, folks, that's what we've got for our budget build for this evening. We kind of went over some of the bug fixes already and that particular stuff, but, yeah, so, any final thoughts for the evening, good sir?
No, to be completely honest, I'm totally enjoying these faulty holo disguises. I do wish they may come, like, in maybe a later thing, maybe they add something to, make full-on holo disguises, like, similar to the Lobby stuff, but with all the stuff that they have in the newer, the faulty ones that they just came out with. So you don't just keep on ending up with, oh, I'm hoping for pretending to be an Undine, and you come out of the Sphere builder like, damn it, now I have to wait 10 seconds, click off of it, try it again, and hope for the best.
Okay.
But besides that, no, I'm thoroughly enjoying this.
Makes sense.
Oh, don't mind me.
Oh Lord, folks, he's gone bonkers. But, anyways, that's what we've got for a show for this evening for you guys. Hope you folks have enjoyed it. Shout out to our good friends over at the Temporal Armada. Very cool bunch of people. Be sure to check out their program as well. They've usually got some pretty good stuff going. Shout out to our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. The party is there. If you guys, as well, on our way out, have any requests for budget builds, feel free to let us know. We do take requests for budget builds on air even. You know, let us know, hey, this is what type of ship I've got, this is what faction I am, and, you know, I've only really got a bare bones budget, or maybe you've got something more mid-range, or maybe you want to go a bit higher end with it. We'll hook you up in that aspect. If you think your gear and your piloting, or if you think your gear is in order at least, and it's your piloting that needs a little bit of work, then get a brief little video clip if you're piloting to us, so we can offer you some tips and tricks on how to improve, and perhaps even run a couple of missions with you if necessary to make sure that you've got everything down pat. But if you have any bugs, anything like that going on, feel free to let us know. We'll pass those on to the devs. It's part of why I'm here, and whatnot is, even though we do joke about it, you know, I don't like bugs any more than you guys do, they don't like bugs any more than the rest of us, and we'll be sure to get it fixed, and be sure to pass it along. If you got any requests for the RP Corner, feel free to let Artie know. He does take requests. Could be as simple as what you think, you know, what his opinion is on a certain topic, or maybe you're not sure how to handle a certain event. Whatever it is, and he may just talk about your topic on air. But for now, folks, this is the Pilot Review Show, reminding you to have your tribbles spayed and or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.